All right. Hey everyone, it's Mike Hambry with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for this episode of the FlipNerd.com Expert Interview Show, where I interview experts from across the real estate investing industry to help you learn a thing or two and to help break up the monotony in my life. I love meeting with people that have a lot of great information, and today is going to be exactly that. This is episode number 303, and my guest today is Jason Lucchesi. Jason is a real estate investor, a mentor, and a coach, and really has a unique spin on a lot of things. He's really found his niche he's talented in a lot of areas, but found his niche in social media and LinkedIn for finding buyers and sellers and financing and a whole bunch of stuff, really kind of using social media to find deals and help fund deals. So we're going to talk about really two things today. Our show is in two parts. The first part, we're going to learn a little bit more about Jason, and he's going to talk about finding deals through social media, something you don't want to miss. We don't really talk about it a lot, even though probably most of you listening to this are maybe listening and trolling Facebook right now as we speak, probably. But he has some powerful tips, and you definitely don't want to miss it. And then we're going to get into talking about funding your deals through community banks. Jason has some great lessons to share about how you can, first off, learn which community banks in your market are kind of keeping their loans and trying to invest in the community. So he's going to give some tips on how to find community banks that might be willing to lend to you. And he's found that a number of banks are willing to lend at very low rates, like 6-7 type percent, and probably not a lot of origination points and stuff like that, and maybe even 100% of your rehab. So, and quite frankly, I use some local banks and I have for years that are very much like that, very easy to work with, investor friendly, and it just takes kind of rolling up your sleeves and finding out who those are. But Jason's going to give us some advice on how to find those today. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey, Jason, how are you today?
Good. How you doing, Mike? Thanks for having me.
Good. Great to see you. I'm really excited to talk about these things. We talked for a while ahead of time, and for our listeners out there, when I have new guests on, we always talk about, well, what are we going to talk about today? What are some great things? And we always beat some stuff up as to, we've talked about that a lot on this show. Let's find something different. But for Jason, it was real obvious that the social media stuff is what we should be talking about, because despite the popularity of social media in everybody's lives, it's kind of taken over. Not a lot of real estate investors use it as a tool in their business, right?
They don't. And, when I do training classes and we start covering it, people always respond like, oh man, this is brilliant. Yeah. And, I ask a lot of our people that are always on our live webinars, hey, who has a LinkedIn account? And majority of them always say they do. And then I'll ask how many of you are actually using it. And it's literally crickets after that. So yeah. Everybody has the accounts. It's just they're not utilizing them to their fullest opportunity.
Yeah. Hey, before we kind of dive into LinkedIn and some other social media things,
sure.
For those that don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and who you are?
Sure. Yeah. And as Mike said, I'm Jason Lucchesi, and I'm from the Indianapolis, Indiana area. Been here now since 2008. And I actually became a full-time real estate investor in 2008. And I actually came from Countrywide Home Loans. So for those of you that don't know, that was pretty much the company that caused a lot of the issues in 2008. And I was with them for quite a while, saw the writing on the wall, lost a ton of money from our good old Angelo Mazzillo, our president of the company, announcing some really bad news. And at the time, I was putting about 40% of my checks into my 401k. So
Wow.
Lost a lot of money, and became a full-time real estate investor here in Indianapolis in 2008. Took a little bit of time for me to really get successful, probably about 6 to 8 months for me to really find my niche. And ever since then, it's just been a great business for me. I've been married to my wife, Jamie, now since 2007, and we have 3 great children, Brady 8, Gavin 6, and Cordelia, who just turned 1 not too long ago. So truly a blessed life, a lot to be thankful for. And, I do a lot of different strategies with notes, foreclosures, short sales, apartments, a lot of wholesaling, a lot of package deals. You name it, we've done a lot of it, Mike, and
Yep.
just we continue to adapt with our market changes.
Yeah, and you have to. What's interesting is, we have people on the show from time to time that have that mortgage background that were on the originating side, or they were lenders or whatever. And then when they kind of opened a new chapter in their life and became an investor, they basically took that knowledge. And because truthfully, I've done a lot of deals, pretty active in the real estate space, but I have no background in the mortgage side. So other than kind of high level, like, well, I think this is how it works. I don't really know. Like, there's an opportunity here because this is how we did it when I was over there, and I know that this is how they get sold, and I know how this is how they're serviced or whatever. Like, I don't have that knowledge. So, is
Yeah.
that when you kind of went in and kind of do real estate investing? Did you think right out of the gate, I'm going to apply this knowledge I have over here? Or was that something along the way that you're like, you started investing and you're like, well, wait, I know something that most people don't.
It took a little bit for me to take the skills that I developed while I was at Countrywide to apply them.
Yeah,
And it wasn't until I really started focusing heavily at that time on short sales. And I was able to understand them a little bit differently than most people that had
sure.
not that experience. And, from a negotiation standpoint, we had to do negotiating with homeowners all the time. So the
Right.
negotiation standpoint helped out quite a bit. And the mortgage business at that time was so competitive. You really had to know how to talk to, people the right way. And you had to, me personally, I don't do like a salesy pitch to people. I just treat people the way I can tell on the phone that I'm having with them or in person. I just treat them like people, like you and I are talking right now. I don't do anything over the top and make somebody feel awful for making a decision.
Right.
And we did really well. I started off as an account executive with Countrywide, worked my way up. I was one of the top people out of 6,000, and eventually became a manager and started managing a couple different offices. And it turned out pretty well. We got to learn the secondary market. We got to learn, what loss mitigation was. So it definitely helped out quite a bit.
Yeah, I think once you start to understand that secondary market, how loans are being packaged and sold off and stuff like that, that I know, I mean, my guess is that's come back around to you in your life, knowing which some of the stuff you're going to share here and some of the stuff that you've done on LinkedIn with finding kind of asset managers and stuff like that. I'm sure that helped a lot.
It did. It did help out
Yeah.
quite a bit. Knowing some of the people to talk to. I never really had to deal with it on my side, but I did know, like, these are some of the people that you do want to talk with.
Sure, sure. Well, let's talk about, LinkedIn, because I agree with you. LinkedIn is one of those tools where, so if I go back like a long time, I was pretty active on like through college and stuff. Like it's always like when you need to find a job, right? Like I need to
Yeah.
find a job, so I'm going to start using it. Otherwise, once in a while, I'm going to go out and I'm going to accept a bunch of requests that people send me that I don't even know who these people are.
Right.
And every once in a while, they'll pull me back in, but it's not quite used the same as like Facebook, obviously, where you're like, inundated with people's like personal lives.
Right.
And so I think because it has that professional focus on, from a job side or a networking side, that unless people need something, they don't generally go look at it. But I think that's probably some of the problem is that people don't realize how valuable a tool it could be for real estate investors. Am I saying that right?
No, you're absolutely correct on that. It's more of
Yeah.
a professional type. Even though we do stuff with Facebook, LinkedIn, you're not seeing people post like what they're having for dinner or or they're checking in at the gym or whatnot. That's all awesome stuff on Facebook, but on LinkedIn, it's more like articles about, professional articles from maybe the Wall Street Journal or, Housing Wire or Huffington Post.
Yeah.
People are talking more about professional things that they're doing within their businesses, and it's crazy how much it's grown within the last 3 to 4 years. Like they literally have 300 million members now, and 180 million of those people are actually super engaged, super active on LinkedIn's
Hmm.
platform. And When I really found out that LinkedIn is much more than a site to try and get employment on, it really changed my business dramatically.
Yeah, yeah. And I know one of the things, and let's have you talk about this a little bit, is that it's a great place to go. You can find out. Let's say you wanted to, I know in the past you've bought distressed assets, or you could buy
Yep.
notes. There's a lot of things you could buy, but you can go find out. Hey, I'm going to buy them from. I want to. These are the 10 banks I want to talk to. And you can start to network with people because you can find out where they work, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of the beauties of it. Is I don't think I've ever gone on Facebook to find out, well, who works at this company, because most people aren't like linked back to their company. Some
Right.
are, but most aren't. Not like LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn is kind of like your resume, right? Like this, if I wanted to find somebody that worked for XYZ Bank, I could probably click on XYZ Bank and see all of their employees that have linked themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's crazy nowadays. You could go on LinkedIn, and these companies now have their profiles listed on LinkedIn and all of the employees associated with that company.
Right.
So it's really, really cool that you can really just go on there, find a company that you want to maybe get a direct contact with, and you could start finding the right person in that department and you could connect with them. And I do that for trying to find direct contacts at banks, hedge funds, private equity firms, even private sellers. We'll find private sellers. And it's really cool that you could start connecting with these people. And it's amazing how much information you can receive, because not too long ago, when I first started calling banks, I literally was cold calling them. So I would cold call these people and I'd be like, "Hey, can I speak to the asset manager, or can I be passed to the asset management department, um, or the REO department?" And you didn't have anybody to ask for specifically. I
Right.
didn't have a name. And next thing you know, you're getting passed around from department to department, and there you go, wasting 4 or 6 hours of your day. So it wasn't the best use of your time.
Right.
And when I found this out on LinkedIn, it was just like a complete like light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, oh man, I can't believe this is available. First of all, and I don't have to pay for it.
Right.
So it was really kind of a mind blowing opportunity to just take a hold of.
Sure, sure. And would you say, Jason, just continue to talk about LinkedIn here, that it's, I know that some people listening right now might be thinking about, well, yeah, or REOs or stuff, but that's long gone. So I know, is where you're at in the Midwest, actually REOs and short sales and stuff are still more prevalent than they were in some of the other markets. They haven't
Yep.
worked themselves through. But could you maybe talk about that for a second and say, are you primarily using it as a tool to find bank-owned assets, or are you going to, are there any other ways you're using it to kind of find deals?
Yeah, absolutely. So we find asset managers, portfolio managers, loan workout officers. We find them at these banks, and we talk to them to try and acquire non-performing notes, some of their REOs that have not been listed yet.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, a bank would rather sell to an investor like us, Mike, that could just buy the property and they don't have to pay out a 5 or 6% commission, and potential lawyer fees on top of that, attorney fees that they have to stack on top of that. So some of these banks, if you get to them, before they actually list it with an agent, they would prefer that, and they do give great discounts on these properties.
Yeah.
Non-performing notes, REOs, and even some properties that they have taken back that they haven't been able to sell. You could buy them in packages, and they'll give you great discounts on these properties.
Yeah. And I know I've never been, I've never, where I'm at in Dallas, for example, REOs were never really a big thing for us here. I've bought hundreds of houses, but very few that were foreclosure or REO type assets. But
Yeah.
I have actually seen a lot more over the past several months of packages of assets coming around and stuff like that you would kind of think, man, isn't that kind of dead? But what's happened is the big banks sold it off to some hedge funds that fooled
Yes.
around with it for a couple of years, and now they're selling some of it off. It's just kind of this ripple effect of, I don't want to say anything that's going to tell this away, but there's somebody that I know that's coming into like 1,000 houses a month that they need to sell from an overseas hedge fund that has bought pieces of packages over the time, and they're trying to kind of get rid of the pieces they don't want now. And so I
Yeah,
think a lot of that stuff is going to be working itself through really probably for years.
I I've been saying that for a while now, and I did a live broadcast not too long ago on my Facebook page talking about that exactly because
Yeah,
I see that that's going to be flooding our market here very soon. I'm not sure if you saw the movie The Big Short or not, but the
I did.
guy
Yeah.
that, well, Michael Burry, who is played by Christian Bale, um, already said that we're facing another housing crisis, and I believe a lot of it's going to be caused by a lot of the hedge funds that just bought way too many properties and got in, way over their head. And we're going to start seeing floods of properties start coming back here. It's either going to happen through, these banks are going to possibly acquire some of these properties. They'll maybe just start, exiting from the properties, but it definitely proves that our market is changing. And you said it perfectly. We're going to see waves of these properties coming back on the market,
Yeah.
and getting in with a lot of these gatekeepers is going to prove to be huge
Right.
for anybody's business.
For the type of guy that spends a lot of time, networking with asset managers or people that have deals, can you maybe give some quick advice or tell a little bit more about what you do? That is actually, I want to network with you to find out what you have today,
Mhm.
and I want to work with you to lay seeds for future harvesting. Like how much of that is building networks now for stuff that might come around down the line?
Sure. So, if I contact an asset manager today and for some reason they don't have anything available that they're looking to liquidate, I'll stay in contact with them on a weekly basis, either it be a phone call or an email, or maybe even I'll send them like a thank you letter for taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, a lot of the old school and new school tactics work perfectly. Sending a letter to somebody and saying thanks. I know, Mike, you've done that around Christmas time and New Year's to us, and I appreciate that. It's just the small things like that
Yeah.
make a huge difference
Right.
in your business.
Nine
So,
out of 10 people are like, "Do you have anything?" Nope. Oh, thanks, and then just move
oh
on.
yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah,
I had that same problem happen probably in 2011. I was contacting a large hedge fund in New York, and I was seeing if they had anything available. Okay, most people would have, like you said, 9 times out of 10 would have hung up the phone. But I stayed on, and I flipped it at that point. I said, "Well, are you guys looking to acquire any new properties?" And boom, he told me exactly what he was looking for. Said they had about $10 million in liquidity that they were looking to apply and deploy towards new residential properties. So
wow,
it quickly turned from a disappointment to a great opportunity.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah,
uh, yeah. So I want to jump into just a minute here. I want to jump into the second part of the show, taking action segment, and we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about how to get money through your community banks. But before I want to kind of one more question from a LinkedIn space. We
sure.
talked about finding relationships there to find deals. Is it what other things could you use LinkedIn for other than kind of finding asset managers and finding potential banks or lenders that have deals and who the right person is to talk to there? Are there other things that you're doing, maybe raising money or finding private lenders or anything like that through LinkedIn?
Yeah, we've actually found a lot of private money on LinkedIn. It's really going in and taking advantage of the groups. In October, no, yeah, October of 2015, that LinkedIn changed their policies on quite a few things. And you used to only be able to join 50 groups for free with the basic account. Now you could join 100. The
Okay.
groups have changed quite a bit, and they've allowed you to join the 100 groups now. Groups have changed a little bit since that time when that took place, but you could still find a lot of great people in these groups. And I suggest if you're not sure which groups to check out, just type my name in the search box if we're not already connected, and you could see all the groups I'm in and you could go and join all of those same groups. Those are some of the top groups that I would recommend for folks. And they're filled with investors. And the cool thing is that I just want to mention here on LinkedIn, once you start connecting with people, you could start setting up reminders and you could start placing tags on those people. So for example, Mike, we just connected, you're a cash buyer, you're wanting to buy stuff here in Indianapolis, and you tell me you're looking for 3-bedroom, 1-bath properties. Well, I can tag you. I could go to your profile now that you and I are connected on LinkedIn, and I could place a tag on you that says cash buyer, Indianapolis, wants 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or 3-bedroom, 1-bath.
So you can write notes on people in LinkedIn for that only you can see. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then you could also set up a reminder up. So you could set a reminder up that states, hey, contact Mike in a week, let him know what type of properties we have available. And that will buzz you through email, and it will let you know, hey, you've got a reminder, contact this person. So
is that a free feature, or do you have to be upgraded? Wow, that's cool. I had no idea.
Absolutely free.
Yeah. It's kind of a little bit of a CRM. You can kind of
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's really cool from that standpoint. So you don't have to go out and buy a software for reminding you to follow up with this person. It's just a cool little tip that not a lot of people utilize on there.
That's awesome. Thanks for joining us up to this point in the show. The second half of our show is restricted to only FlipNerd Pro and Elite members, and only accessible on FlipNerd.com. If you're not a Pro or Elite member yet, you can upgrade your account in about 1 minute by visiting flipnerd.com/upgrade. Depending on membership level, you'll get access to off-market properties real time, including real-time email and text alerts for new properties listed in your market. You'll get access to hundreds of full-length expert interviews, and Elite members get access to the FlipNerd Lab, which includes detailed masterclass trainings, 2 live webinars a month where you can interact with the leaders in the industry, and access to our Elite Mastermind group, where you can interact with hundreds of the top real estate investors in America. Build relationships with those that are actually operating successful real estate investing businesses. By visiting flipnerd.com/upgrade, you'll learn much more about our membership options. And once you've upgraded your membership, come on back and listen to the rest of this show.